Back in the book segment tonight, President Obama, terror warrior. As you know, the president is the drone king, conducting the war on terror from space, killing al-Qaeda and Taliban leaders with Hellfire missiles. Some Americans believe that if George Bush and Dick Cheney had conducted the war like that, the American left would have gone nuts. But there is largely silence from liberals on Mr. Obama's drone strategy. Joining us now from Washington, Charles Krauthammer wrote a syndicated column this week on this subject. Not only in the United States, but around the world. You don't hear, remember the Bush cowboy, and he's doing all this stuff, and he's unilateral. Well, the drone program is certainly unilateral, and certainly the guy that's deciding is President Obama, nobody else. So the silence is deafening all over the world.
And it's across the board. It's on just about every comparable issue. Think of Guantanamo. For years and years, the left here and abroad was complaining of how this was sort of a denial and upending of all of that America holds dear. Obama himself opposed it, railed against it. When he was president, he went around the world on his first apology tour, speaking about what a stain it was. And now it remains open. Do you hear a peep from the left? You hear nothing. Remember with the Patriot Act, eavesdropping, wiretaps, preventative detention, indefinite detention, rendition of prisoners. All of these were the Bush administration tearing up the Constitution. Every single one is still in place. Do you hear a word from the left? And the worst is just the Afghan war itself. Think about this. Obama triples the number of troops. He doubles the casualty rate. So it isn't only the rights of people, but Americans are dying. Can you imagine if this war were being conducted with the higher rate of casualties, with the surge by George Bush or even by John McCain? They'd be out there in the streets. But because it's Obama, because it's a liberal, because it's a Democrat, you get nothing. I have respect for principled lefties like a Kucinich who opposes this left, right, no matter who's in power. But for the rest of them, they are hypocrites, and they are acting entirely out of tactical advantage and not out of principle.
Okay. Now, President Obama himself, perceived to be a very liberal guy, certainly is on domestic issues, but this is not a liberal policy, the drone attacks. I mean, obviously, it's not. This is something that Dick Cheney would support and does support. George W. Bush would support. John McCain would support. So how do you square in your mind, because I know you study President Obama, how do you square this? Is President Obama just a liberal guy on domestic issues and he's a hawk on foreign policy issues?
No, I think it's the same process that happened on Guantanamo, rendition, the Patriot Act. You're in opposition, you're a lefty, you're a liberal, you're against all this stuff. It's all for you a theory. Then you become president. You've got people, you have 300 million Americans who depend on you for their lives. You still have these incredibly stupid lapses into abstract liberalism, as when the Christmas Day bomber, the guy who tried to blow up the airliner over Detroit, he's arrested and he's read his Miranda rights. I mean, that's loony. You still get the Holder trying to take Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the guy who did 9/11, and to give him a civilian trial in New York so he can show the whole world that, that we'll give him his constitutional rights, which he's not entitled to in the first place. They will still slip into this idiocy. However, conducting the war, protecting us against terrorists, is a national security imperative. Any president, left, right, and center, would have to come to the same conclusions. But that is why the hypocrisy and the attacks by the left in those 8 years are so despicable.
With all the reportage, wait. With all the reportage on President Obama, it all indicates that he takes this drone thing very personally. All right? All of the reporting says that he wants to know. He says a lackey, that what's his name, the American. He said, get that guy. It's personal to him. Another liberal might, be recoil from it a little bit, but do it under pressure or whatever. With Obama, it seems that he wants to do it. He relishes it. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
I think you're reading it wrong. I think that's probably the impression he'd like at least independents or people in the center to have of him, because he's been so weak in other areas of foreign policy, the Russians walking all over him, the Iranians doing nothing on Syria. He wants to look like a tough guy. That entire story was leaked to the New York Times, and that story came 2 weeks after a Times story which revealed all kinds of secrets about the cyber war we are conducting against Iran, the nuclear program, and the virus. He wants to show himself to be a tough guy. But look, Lyndon Johnson, who was a liberal's liberal, he's the guy, famously, he picked out the bombing targets in Vietnam.
No, I know.
So it has nothing to do with Obama. A president ought to delegate all this and let the generals who know how to conduct a war do it.
All right.
He should set the policy. He should not be the one who picks the targets. But he wants that impression so he'll look like a tough guy.
But I think he does have his finger on a trigger in this case.